Hi. Everybody, the movie begins with Heather and Greg arriving at a busy harbor, hoping to find someone who can take them out on the water to explore the sea. Pretty soon they meet Tucker, the owner of the only boat available that day, and it's clear from the get-go that this guy is a bit of a nosy character, always sticking his nose where it doesn't belong. Heather and Greg explained they'd originally planned to go out with a group of friends, but ended up crashing after a long tiring night, even though they're on vacation and should be relaxing. Tucker agrees to take them out on the trip so the couple can have the chance to swim with sharks without wasting a minute. They set sail toward the open ocean. While they're out there, Tucker shares a story from his childhood, how he was once bitten by a shark when he was just a kid. But instead of sparking excitement or curiosity in Heather, the story only serves to make her feel even more uneasy and nervous. Afraid of what might go wrong, she asked Tucker if he ever saw any warning signs in the water before. He admits that back then he didn't really pay attention to any warnings since he used to spend a lot of time alone in there. Was no one around to keep an eye on him. When they finally reach the perfect spot to swim among the sharks, Tucker starts tossing buckets of bait into the sea to lure the sharks closer. His clients start to get visibly nervous, especially Heather, who's absolutely terrified at the thought of jumping in. As she leans over the edge and spots a shark's fin slicing through the water, she immediately regrets the decision and admits she just can't do it. To calm their nerves, Tucker walks over and teaches them a relaxation technique he claims is common among sailors. He promises them it will work and instructs them to close their eyes, take several deep breaths, and follow the rhythm of the catchy kids' tune Baby Shark. That infectious melody manages to coax a few smiles from Heather and soothe her fears. Right after, he quickly gets them into the cage, fully equipped for swimming with sharks. Still, once Heather sees dozens of those massive animals swimming all around her, panic sets in again. That's when Greg grabs her arm, and only then does she start to see the sharks, not as monsters, but as fascinating, relatively harmless creatures. But just as they're surfacing, still buzzing from the experience, Tucker suddenly attacks Greg, shoving him into the water to be torn apart by the sharks, officially welcoming Heather aboard his sinister operation. From there, the story shifts to Australia's surfer paradise, where dozens of amateur and pro surfers spend hours perfecting their skills riding the waves. That's where we meet Scifi, a young surfer girl who, after chilling on the beach for a bit, heads over to a nearby shop. There, a guy asks her for a hand jump-starting his car. At first she refuses. Honestly, she's just not in the mood to help out some stranger, but he manages to convince her when he threatens to report her to the store manager. It turns out she had swiped an ice cream, and only then does our protagonist decide to help Moses, tagging along as he heads back to his car. To avoid that awkward silence, Moses starts jabbering nonstop, telling her all about his gig in real estate, but honestly, she's not the least bit interested in his life, at least not until she spots a surfboard tucked away in the trunk of Moses' ride. From that moment on, as they fumble trying to start the car, they begin to break the ice and realize they might actually get along pretty well. They both dig similar music tastes. That shared interest gives them a more chill vibe to chat about. Still, they decide to put the heavy talks on hold and just have a fun, no strings attached night hanging out in the back of Scifi's minivan. When the night winds down, neither of them wants to call it quits just yet. They stay up a little longer, getting to know each other at a slower pace. Moses remembers they're parked right outside his place, and offers Zephyr a chance to come inside to freshen up or maybe even join him for a nice dinner. See, Zephyr's life is kind of nomadic. She's always on the move, living out of her van and improvising each day while chasing her next big adventure. Moses wants to know why she's so hooked on surfing, and Zephyr explains it's her way of rebelling against a system that crushes the human spirit. For her, there's nothing left that ties her down to solid ground anymore. They spend the night together until in the dead of night Moses gets up to make some pancakes, but when he's done and comes back all excited to keep getting to know her, he finds out Zephyr's already gone. We then see her pull up at a nearby parking lot by the beach, gearing up to catch some waves in the middle of the night. But just as she's about to head out, she realizes she forgot something back at Moses's place. Instead of going back, she decides to check out a parked truck nearby, hoping to get some help. Noticing no one's inside, she starts searching around for and right then the owner of the truck shows up, none other than Tucker. He's friendly enough, surprised that some girl would want to surf alone at night and in such rough currents. Still, he takes off without causing trouble as Zephyr's left alone. she gets a message from Moses worried about a sudden disappearance, telling her he's got breakfast ready. She sends back a picture showing she's about to hit the waves, and when he offers to join her, she's cool with it. But just when things seem fine, someone slips a plastic bag over her head, and we realize Tucker's back ready to take control. He knocks her out cold with some injected substance, shoves her into a bag, and gets ready to haul her off to some other place. This twisted creep drives with an eerie calm heading toward his own gas station down by the harbor, and just as he's about to reach his boat, the neighbor's dog, like clockwork, starts growling at him. Seems like that dog's the only one with a sense to pick up on the dark vibes this guy's putting out. With a lot of effort, this psychopath drags our heroine deep into the most hidden shadowy corners of his boat. Meanwhile, Moses, anxious and desperate to find Zephyr, makes his way to the nearest beach and parks right beside her minivan, but when he's about to hand over the breakfast he brought, he notices she's nowhere nearby, not out surfing, not around at all. Calling out to her, he hears her phone ringing inside the van and instantly knows something seriously wrong. On the other side, our protagonist wakes up dazed and confused in a strange place. As she tries to sit up, she realizes one of her hands is cuffed tight to a bunch of pipes, sending a wave of panic and helplessness crashing over her. Suddenly she notices another girl locked up with her. Seeing that this other girl is cuffed too, the panic only grows stronger. Zephyr frantically struggles to break free from her restraints, but the other girl, Heather, a previous victim, tells her in a tired, broken voice that they're both trapped on that man's boat. No matter how much Zephyr screams, Heather warns her, no one's gonna hear a thing. When Heather apologizes for the foul stench hanging heavy in the air, Zephyr spots a bucket full of waste tucked in a corner, proof that her companion's been stuck here for days. At that moment, it hits us hard. They're stranded miles out in the middle of the ocean, totally cut off with no boats around to rescue them. The only one who hears their agonizing cries for help is Tucker himself, calmly enjoying his breakfast while the screams of his captives play like a chilling morning soundtrack. Our heroines are locked away in the deepest, darkest part of the boat, guarded by multiple locks running along the whole hallway leading to them, realizing no one's coming to save them. Zephyr desperately starts searching for anything she can use to jimmy the cuffs, but her search suddenly stops cold when she spots a name scratched into the wall, a previous victim of that monster, and the discovery freezes her in her tracks. Meanwhile, Tucker is chilling out fishing for little baitfish right there in the middle of the vast endless ocean, soaking up the calm and quiet of the open sea. Back in the deepest part of his boat, his latest victim, Zephyr, is slowly starting to lose hope. Feeling completely alone and desperate, she asks Heather if there's anyone out there who might possibly be looking for her. Heather tells her that only one guy ever knew where she was. The same guy was with her when they went shark diving the day they hired Tucker's services, but then she invites Zephyr to figure out on her own how everything ended up. Then Heather turns it around and asks Zephyr if there's anyone out there searching for her. Zephyr, with a resigned, almost defeated tone, admits that no one is looking for her, not even close, completely unaware that at that very moment, Moses has just pulled back into the beach parking lot and watches in shock as a tow truck hauls away Zephyr's minivan. Since she never came back, the van is being taken away. That's the final straw for Moses. Something's seriously wrong, and he knows he has to act fast. Wasting no time, he heads straight to the police station, convinced beyond any doubt that Zephyr would never have let her van get towed away, especially since that's where she lives. But the officer on duty tries to explain that people who live a nomadic on-the-move lifestyle often make impulsive or unconventional choices. Still, he agrees to take Moses' statement and asks for Zephyr's personal information. Unfortunately, Moses realizes with a sinking feeling that he doesn't even know Zephyr's last name. Back on the boat, the sky starts to darken as the evening creeps in. Zephyr keeps struggling, putting all her strength into trying to break free from the pipes holding her captive. Meanwhile, Heather, trying to distract herself from the horror surrounding them, tells Zephyr about a big fight she had with her mother just before she disappeared. Her mom didn't want her to take a gap year off, and that argument was the last time they saw each other. Now Heather's terrified she might never see her mom again. Feeling moved, Zephyr asks why her mom was so against it. Heather explains it was all about her safety, and sadly, reality has proven her right. She's trapped in a nightmare she doesn't know if she can ever escape. Still, with a calm but determined voice, our protagonist promises Heather that she will see her mom again and that there's still time to start. The life she really wants. When Heather gets curious about Zephyr's own story, Zephyr opens up saying she's been bounced from one foster home to another her whole life. She says she wanted to get as far away as possible from all those families who were never truly hers. And unlike what most people think, the only thing she really learned in reform school was how to tell really bad jokes. Suddenly Zephyr notices Heather's wearing a metal ring hooked onto the strap of her swimsuit. Wasting no time, she asks her to hand it over so she can try to jimmy the lock on the handcuffs. The girl takes off her bra and tosses it to Zephyr, who quickly moves to pull out the metal piece. But just as she's doing that, they hear the footsteps of their so-called kind kidnapper approaching, carrying what looks like dinner for the night. At first, Heather hesitates about accepting the food, but after who knows how long without a single bite, she decides to at least take the glass of water that's offered. When Tucker notices his victim's bra is missing, Zephyr quickly jumps in to distract him. She directly asks for the food and pleads with him not to ask any unnecessary questions. The sicko leans in way too close, but finally backs off without saying a word. Once they're alone again, Zephyr tries to pick the handcuffs with a metal rod. Suddenly though Heather passes out just before Zephyr loses consciousness too. She catches a glimpse of Tucker coming back into the room, ready to snatch the tool right out of her hands. When she wakes up again, Zephyr realizes she's on the deck of the boat. She's tied to a chair while Heather lies unconscious, dressed in a strange outfit and strapped into some kind of harness. Right in front of them, a camera is switched on and pointed directly at the ocean. As expected, Tucker doesn't answer any of her questions. Instead, he tells Zephyr that he's watched her surf with extraordinary skill, and that from the very first moment he saw her, he knew he wanted to catch her. Suddenly, a strange sound echoes over the sea, and without wasting a second, this psychopath moves over to Heather. With a chilling calm, he takes the time to cut off a lock of her hair, and as he wakes her up, explains to the other girl that humans have the unfortunate habit of feeling fear in their guts instead of their heads that he says totally clouds their judgment and leads to screaming, chaos, and pure desperation. With just the press of a button, the man activates a mechanism that lifts Heather up into the air. Thanks to that harness, he'd carefully strapped to her body earlier. Slowly he lowers her toward the dark shark-infested water, while continuing to explain as if he's teaching a lesson that sharks generally don't attack humans when they do. He insists it's because they're confused since fishermen dump tons of bait into the water to attract them, and over time sharks have learned to associate boats with food. Completely ignoring the screams of both girls, the psycho starts lowering Heather down toward the blood-stained water packed with circling sharks. And just when it looks like he's about to pull her back up to the boat, he simply adjusts the camera to perfectly capture the exact moment the sharks begin tearing her apart. He revels in every second of the footage, showing not even a shred of remorse, and coldly warns Zephyr that her turn will come tomorrow night. Devastated by what she just witnessed, a protagonist scratches Heather's name onto the wall of the boat. Meanwhile, Tucker celebrates what he calls the best night of his life, wine bottle in hand, dancing along to the music. But soon he stops, completely mesmerized by the lock of hair he snipped off Heather right before she was devoured. He carefully tucks it away, unaware that his only remaining victim has discovered scrawled in that very spot the names of several other girls who met the exact same horrifying fate. It's clear this monster has kidnapped of women, subjecting them all to the same terrifying end. Now she knows she's next, but trapped and powerless, faced with the horror that awaits, she explodes in a furious outburst of rage and desperation. With the first rays of sunlight, the remains of Heather's body can be seen floating in the water. Meanwhile, somewhere else along the coast, Moses plunges into the sea, hoping to find Zephyr. But when she still doesn't appear, he decides to head back to shore. There he spots a broken surfboard, never imagining that the young woman he's searching for is trapped aboard a boat in the middle of the ocean. Back on the boat, Tucker returns to the compartment where Zephyr is held, offering her some food, insisting she'll need her strength for the show that night. But when he sees her looking defeated and down, he asks where the fierce fighting spirit he saw in her recently has gone. In response, she kicks the food away and demands he stay away from her. Yet somehow this only seems to spur Tucker on, and he starts rambling about his absurd fishing philosophies, constantly comparing himself to mighty sharks. Our protagonist, however, can't hold back and fires back, telling him he's nothing but a pathetic coward who kidnaps women because his mother never loved him as a kid, though her words cut deep and hit their mark. He holds back from reacting and leaves her with a suggestion to use the fancy bathroom on board. Little does he know he just gave Zephyr a brilliant idea. She grabs the bucket and breaks off the handle, turning the sharp edge into a weapon. Later, after having lunch while watching his latest recorded footage, Tucker prepares a sedative injection when he thinks he finally has the chance to inject her while she's asleep. Our protagonist catches him off guard, striking directly at his jugular, causing the guy to slam his head hard and drop to the floor unconscious. Right away she seizes the moment, grabs the keys from his pockets, and frees herself from the handcuffs. But just as she tries to make her escape through the hatch, the lunatic snaps awake and lunges to catch her. His speed and strength keep Zephyr from locking him in. So as she bolts toward the stairs leading up to the deck, he manages to catch her and injects a sedative right into her leg. Still, the young woman fights back, kicking him hard enough to knock him down and battling the creeping sleepiness. She stumbles over to the controls to call for help, but no one seems to hear her desperate cries. In that moment, she spots a boat cruising nearby, and before the anesthesia fully takes over, she screams at the top of her lungs, begging for rescue, but the people partying on the yacht don't hear a thing. Just as Tucker catches up to her, she throws his video camera into the water, triggering a furious reaction from him. Not wasting a second, she jumps into the sea, but the sedative kicks in, and just before she could drown, the psychopath hauls her out thanks to Moses' relentless efforts to find Zephy, whose disappearance remains a complete mystery. Extensive searches are launched along the beach to see if she might have drowned while surfing. But when no trace is found, Moses remembers a wave monitoring app that lets him check security footage from beach cameras. In one clip, it's clear as day when the young woman arrives on the shore right as an orange truck pulls out of the parking lot. Luckily, Moses spots the logo painted on the vehicle, and we realize Zephyr has been completely immobilized. Digging online, Moses finds out that the company Tucker's Experience offers tours for tourists and entire families to swim with sharks. He tries to reach Tucker by phone, but the call goes straight to voicemail, so he leaves a message hoping to talk soon. Still, he notices the company's address is listed right on the website. Meanwhile, our unstable antagonist returns to the port. He refuses any well-paying job offers and heads straight to buy the so-called supplements he claims to need out of his mind. The man storms into a second-hand shop hunting for a recorder that might come in handy. At the same time, Moses arrives at the port intending to confront Tucker, unaware that Tucker's stuck in traffic trying to get back to his boat. Though from his car he spots a stunning young woman with long striking red hair, something you don't see every day. Moses knocks on the boat's door, but no one answers. Just as he's about to walk away, he thinks he hears a noise coming from inside. Focusing hard, he catches faint muffled screams. Without hesitation, he forces the door open however he can and steps onto the boat. At the same time, the boat's owner is also approaching his property. That's when Moses finds where Zephyr is being held captive, trying to help her. She begs him to call the cops or find something to pick the lock. But before he can act, he heads back up to the deck and suddenly Tucker shows up just returned. Tucker towers over Moses, easily overpowering him. He snatches the phone from Moses' hands and slams it hard against his throat to keep him from calling for help. Then with a fishing hook, he drags Moses close and rips the phone away for good, wondering where the hell Moses came from. Still, in a quick move, Moses manages to knock Tucker down and tries to choke him out with that same hook. Just as he's about to finish the job, Tucker's neighbor rushes in, stepping in to defend the man he thought was a friend, saving Tucker from what seemed like certain death. But when the neighbor hears the screams coming from the boat, he turns to confront the man he once trusted. Despite this, Tucker's brutal strength lets him get back up and knock the neighbor out with a single crushing blow. Then he tells Zephyr he's back and immediately starts preparing to leave the port, but noticing there's not enough gas, he decides to head for a nearby island instead. Meanwhile, our two protagonists are now kidnapped together. When Moses wakes up, he apologizes to Zephyr for messing up the rescue attempt, but she sincerely thanks him for even trying, especially after learning the cops still have no clue where they are. When the boat finally stops, Zephyr instantly feels the worst. To lighten the mood, Moses asks why she ran that morning, since he thought there was a real connection between them. She tells him she's better off alone, but he doesn't buy a word of it. Even though he doesn't know her last name, he's figured out who she really is. Their conversation is cut short when Tucker appears again, this time with that same harness from before. He manages to sedate Moses and straps it onto him as Tucker starts lifting Moses, intending to toss him into the sea. Zephyr pleads with him to think twice, reminding him Moses does have a family who will come looking once they realize he's missing. However, the man doesn't even flinch. No matter how much our protagonist struggles and tries to resist, he's dragged toward the water, teeming with hungry sharks. At the very last second, Zephyr manages to get Tucker to stop and begs him to throw her in instead. Still, he decides to dunk the man into the bait-filled water. Our protagonist pleads with Moses to stay as still as possible, warning him that these predators will attack at the slightest sign of movement. Because of this, the tiger sharks back off without harming him, but as the psycho drags him back onto the deck, he deliberately wounds him so that the blood will lure the sharks back again without missing a beat. Tucker begins to submerge Moses once more, and the spilled blood quickly draws the hungry predators closer. But just as he's about to fully sink him, Tucker spots a helicopter in the sky. To avoid getting caught, he hides his victims. As the chopper fades into the horizon, with every passing second, Moses is losing more and more blood. Zephyr desperately wants to help, but she can't even free herself from the handcuffs to reach him. Then, recalling how Moses risked his own safety to find her, she makes a bold decision. She purposely dislocates her own thumb, hoping she can wiggle her hand free from the cuffs. Right at that moment, the psychopath reappears to feed his prisoners. Though seeing Moses barely alive on the bed, he assumes the guy has no appetite. He even tells Zephyr Moses isn't the right man for her, calling him weak and soft, unlike her, tough as nails, just like himself. He starts comparing himself to her, claiming they're the same. Nobody looks out for them and they don't need anyone. Then he leaves, convinced that tonight they're gonna put on one hell of a show. Meanwhile, we see our heroine still trying to shift her hand, fighting to break free from the cuffs, but even the pain isn't enough. Her hand just won't slip out. So with a new plan, she takes her dislocated thumb into her mouth and grinding through the pain finally frees herself from the binding. As night falls, our twisted villain prepares the syringe he plans to use for his sick performance. But when he goes looking for the girl, he spots a big bloody lump on the bed. Moving closer, he finds one of her fingers lying on the pillow, but she's not there. She's hidden behind the door, taking advantage of the moment she traps him inside the room and heads straight for the boat's controls. However, it turns out Tucker already had an alternative escape route planned, and after leaving the room, he frustrates every single attempt Zephyr makes to start the boat. No matter what she tries, he's always one step ahead, blocking her moves. Right away, the young woman, growing more and more desperate by the second, spots some distant lights flickering in the dark. Without wasting a single moment, she bolts toward the flares, hoping to use them as a signal for help, but her kidnapper silently creeps up behind her, moving like a shadow. In a frantic bid to keep him from catching her, she fires one of the flares toward him and then tries to escape through a skylight window on the roof, but that lunatic grabs her quickly, not caring how much she struggles or how many times she hits him during the struggle, dragging her right back. They tussle fiercely, but luckily Zephyr manages to wound his hand in the scuffle. Taking advantage of that brief moment, she slips out of his line of sight and makes a break for it. Tucker then switches on a powerful spotlight to scour the water for her, and thinking he's found her, he rushes to grab his harpoon ready to stop her for good. Still, the young woman evades him yet again, desperate to intercept her before she reaches shore by swimming. He jumps into a small motorboat. But when Zephyr screams out for help, she quickly realizes the beach is completely deserted. Weak from blood loss, she doesn't last long before Tucker's grip overpowers her, hauling her back to the boat with dark intentions. Soon it's Moses' turn to witness the horror. Zephyr lies unconscious, strapped to a harness hanging just above the water's surface. While Moses himself remains immobilized nearby, Tucker starts rambling about animal instincts that, according to him, no man can simply suppress. Then, zeroing back in on his twisted task, he wakes Zephyr up and, as usual, begins babbling nonstop with his bizarre fishing allegories. Thrilled by thoughts no one else seems to grasp amid his warped words, one thing's crystal clear. He believes he holds total control over everything he can touch. Without wasting any more time, he prepares to dunk the girl underwater using the harness, but suddenly stops when he spots a massive shark swimming just beneath his next victim. Even more hyped up by the footage he's about to capture, he plunges her into the water. Terrified, Zephyr tries to stay completely still, knowing that any movement, a drop of blood will attract the predator. When she sees the huge beast drawing near, she manages to fend it off briefly with her feet. Quick as lightning, Tucker grabs a spear to scare off a smaller shark, but the creature snatches the fragile spear right from his hands. Luckily, Zephyr reaches it just in time to defend herself against the massive shark creeping back with deadly stealths, but right before one of those beasts can strike. Suddenly she plunges deep into the water, giving Zephyr just enough time to grab onto the end of the harness, shielding herself from the massive shark that reappears out of nowhere. That's when Tucker seizes the moment to scare her even more because of the weight. The rope snaps and she falls, sinking fully into the dark, cold depths below. With no other choice, our heroine dives down and starts swimming as hard as she can, putting as much distance between herself and the boat as possible. But just then she spots the gigantic sea creature closing in on her fast. Terrified, she strains to stay completely still. Even though she leaves a trail of blood behind, the shark doesn't attack. Instead, the animal circles around her cautiously. That's when Zephyr realizes the shark's injured, probably from earlier encounters with other humans trying to catch it, so the creature decides to back off, leaving her unharmed. Taking advantage of the chance, Zephyr climbs back onto the boat. This time from a different spot, silent as a shadow, she sneaks up and grabs the psychopath's harpoon by surprise. She attacks him from behind and throws him overboard, where he soon starts to feel that familiar panic, the terror of being hunted by a shark again, and just when he thinks he's safe, the enormous sea beast bursts to the surface, ready to devour him whole before effortlessly swimming away. But just when we think this nightmare might finally be over, our heroine feels the harpoon's rope wrapped tight around her leg, dragging her down into the ocean's deep, dark abyss alongside the shark. Desperate, Moses waits anxiously, every second dragging on as he stares, hoping to see her surface, but finally convinced he's lost her, he gives in. Exhausted and out of strength to keep fighting, he surrenders to death, defeated by his wounds and the heavy loss of blood. Suddenly Zephyr breaks through the water and climbs back aboard the boat, but with growing dread she realizes her friend isn't waking up, gritting her teeth. Grabs another flare and lights it, desperately signaling for help toward the party yacht cruising not far away. Just at the right moment, the crew on that boat spots the distress signals and announces they're coming over to rescue them. Yet Moses still hasn't regained consciousness, and in the crushing silence, our heroine tearfully confesses that when she thought there was no one left in the world for her, she met him, and since then her whole view on life changed completely. She begs him, voice breaking, to wake up, and Moses, who's been listening to every word, replies with a faint, weary smile that he always knew. Like and subscribe for more interesting movie like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.